All right, welcome to video 7 of my tutorial playlist. The biggest part of my rules, the buying players, and you'll be very familiar with it if you played my previous rule set. It comes back again, it's just a little bit more fleshed out and there's all these bonuses applied. So you've got your Buzzko's transfer realism calculator on this page, and that's the most important part of the page. So every time you want to buy a player, you need to figure out if it's a realistic transfer. And the way you do that is you go and you actually put in the club details, the player details, and any other details, and it spits you out a result. So we'll go through a sample here. Let's say we're Everton and we're trying to buy someone from Villa. So it's an English club. You select the club and then you select the current league they're in. So they are in the Premier League right now, but perhaps at some point they fell to the Championship. You would have to pick that. And then you pick the international competition they're in. And if you don't know the international competition, you just pick none. In this case, let's say Villa didn't make Europe, so none. Then you type in their overall. Now, the overall calculator is over here. Now, a lot of people ask me, how do you calculate a team's overall? Well, you go into the team sheets, import team sheet, and you find the actual team, and that gives you their current overall, whether you're in season 5 or in season 1. You select their formation, you put in their attack, their midfield, and their defense, and it spits you out an overall, which you then use in the buying calculator, put it in here. Now the domestic and international prestige is done for you. Your domestic and international prestige may increase, but other clubs' prestige will stay the same. So you never input that, it's auto-filled in for you, and then you move on to the player details. Let's say we're buying an English player. You type in the player's overall. Let's say he's currently a 78. And then you type in his potential. Now, you have a link right here to SoFIFA where you can quickly find the player's potential. If that player is not real, if he's a region or if he's a youth player, there is a way to calculate it. You can go to the buying player's instructions and figure it out there. Let's say this player's potential is 84. You calculate that and then you go to the position. Let's say we're buying a striker and he is 22 years of age. And then you type in how long he's been at the club. All this information, by the way, you can find in the player details when you're buying a player. There's a section for it. Let's say he's been at the club for 3 years, and it gives you already a realism calculation and a transfer outcome. So this transfer is realistic. Now, there's different little checkboxes here you can select. Perhaps this player used to play for Everton and he was a former graduate. You would select that, and based on if you had that particular trait, it would give you a bonus to this realism calculation. There's different ones. Transfer listed isn't associated with a trait. You can always select it if he's transfer listed and it will add you 3 points. And there's different ones you can select. Now it gave you a transfer outcome. It's realistic and you can buy this player successfully. But that's because we have a lot of abilities that add us bonuses to buying under 23 players, specifically offensive under 23 players. So let's say that this player isn't a striker. Let's just say he's a CDM. Well, all of a sudden, the transfer is unrealistic because we picked up that trait that gives us the ability to sign under 23 players that are attackers. We also have an offensive players trait. So you can see how the different traits can push you over the edge or can just mean that it's an unrealistic transfer. In any case, once you're done, let's say he is a striker and it is a realistic transfer, you know he's realistic, you can then reset. One more thing to note here, if this club was a bigger club, it would tell you in this box right here. Once you're done all this and you know it's a realistic transfer, you move on to the Buzzko's player value calculator. This is another calculator that now will tell you how much you need to pay for this player. So we'll type in his overall again. I believe it was 77 and his potential was 84. We type in his form. Let's say it's okay. his morale, let's say he's happy. Again, all this information and any information regarding a player you can find in the squad hub if it's your own player, and in the player details if it's a foreign player, if it's a player you're trying to buy. His age, let's say it's 22. Whether his contract is expiring, again, you can find it in player details, and if it's a deadline deal. Let's say it's none of those. You input his market value, let's say it's 10 million. And it spits you out the final valuation. In this case, we need to pay a minimum of 17 million for this player. And that's basically how the buying players formulas work. Again, if you want to know exactly what the formulas are, you've got the transfer realism formula here. You've got the player value formula here. You can figure out what's going on. Your abilities are always listed here, so you'll be able to know exactly what type of players you can sign more easily. And this is where you check, and that's basically what the buying players is.